Today's guest is a North Dakota native, a marketing guru, and one of the women featured on season 29 of The Bachelor, Christina Smith. Welcome to the show. What was that first feeling when you stepped out of the limo and started walking up?
Overwhelming, but I was like, wow, he is so handsome in person. The Bachelor fans and the people that watch the show are crazy. People knew we got eliminated by our Pinterest activity.
Oh my gosh.
I left the conversation not expecting to get sent home. Are we starting?
Yeah. Are you good?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back to the Beyond the Spotlight podcast hosted by myself. My name is Jack.
And I'm Aiden.
Today we have Christina here with us. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you to our sponsors, Brushmark Signs, Woods and Irons, All Sagar Meats, Digital Guru, and Giant Snacks. Thank you guys for sponsoring our show. Without you guys, we would not be here today. Today's guest is a North Dakota native, a marketing guru, and one of the women featured on season 29 of The Bachelor, Christina Smith. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. You guys are actually my first podcast that I've ever been on since the show. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So those are your well-known highlights. Now let's get beyond the spotlight. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm honestly just super excited to be here. This is super exciting. I'm finally ready that I can talk about being on The Bachelor now that everything's kind of quieted down, but whatnot.
So before we get too far into the actual Bachelor story itself, we want to talk a little bit about you and behind the scenes. So where did you grow up at and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I kind of had an untraditional upbringing, I would say, but born and raised in Fargo. When I was younger, my mom kind of got into some trouble and she ended up going to jail. And so then I went and lived with my dad for a little bit. He was too young, couldn't take care of me. So then my grandparents stepped in and they raised me. And yeah, they were kind of my rock. I lost my grandma actually just before high school. And then I lost my grandpa in 2020. So it's just kind of been me. I don't really have a relationship with my mom. It was very toxic growing up. And so I just thought it was best for me to, not have a relationship with her. I have an unbalanced one with my dad is what I like to call it.
Sure.
Since his parents raised me, he never really had the responsibility of being a dad. So I don't think he knows how to be a dad. And it's kind of like more of a brother-sister relationship. And so I would say the family that I'm closest with is my cousin. She's like my ride or die. She's like my little sister. And then her mom, so my aunt, my dad's sister, she's kind of like an aunt, a sister, and a mom all in one because she was there for me since I was a little girl. And so, yeah, I've just had a very kind of untraditional one, but I can appreciate it and have so much love for it.
Yeah, that seems like that's like a more difficult upbringing. I was going to ask, since all that happened, who was your kind of like go-to person to talk to, and that ended up being your cousins then?
Yeah, so it was my cousin for a while, or it kind of always has been, but it was my grandpa until I lost him, but then it was my previous partner, if I'm being honest. We were together for 5.5 years, and we met right after I graduated high school. And so it was a few years before I lost my grandpa, but he was there through my grandpa's passing. And after that, he was the person that I went to for everything. He was like my best friend. And he, was my rock, which I loved at the time.
So what was dating like for you before the show came around?
So right before the show, I was obviously struggling with it. But before that, kind of a few years before it, I was in a very serious relationship. I was in a 5.5 year relationship.
It's a long time.
Yeah, we started dating when I was 19. And we actually started out as roommates, right? So when I say I was dating someone for 5.5 years, people always have the question of like, oh, was it like really 5.5 years? Was it on and off?
Yeah.
Like, whatever. And I'm like, no, we started out as roommates. We lived together the entire time. We were never broken up. And we were inseparable. I mean, we were attached at the hip pretty much. And we lived together, and then we're like, you know what, we're going to sell this house and build a new one. And so we actually built a house, and we built it out in Kindred. this big kind of like house almost. So
Yeah.
the garage was 8 stalls and it was kind of like a loft type house. Yeah, we were together for 5.5 years, kind of did the whole shebang of we got a house, we got dogs, we got cars. We did everything that you would do as a
Right.
married couple. We just weren't married. And so then he did get a ring and we were kind of moving into that stage. And that's where I was just like, I'm only 23, 24, about to be 24. Can I actually commit to somebody before experience anything or life on my own? Because before that, I had moved straight out of my grandparents' house
Right.
into, I knew some friends. I moved up north for like a month. One of them turned out to be kind of a roommate, and I didn't sign the lease, and I kind of screwed him over, but I was like, I'm moving out. And like a month or so, I had met my previous partner, and he's like, I actually just bought a house and I could use a roommate. If you want to move in, you can, and you just have to pay the same rent that you were paying at the other place. And I was like, sweet, let's do it. So I moved in, and I didn't really experience life on my own. I never lived on my own yet. And so I was like, it doesn't feel right to commit to somebody in marriage without doing some self-discovery, right?
Sure.
And I feel like since I live in Fargo, I've been born and raised, I've been there my whole life. There's kind of a tradition trap, I feel like, in that area where you're kind of pushed to go to school, get the job, find the husband or partner or whatever, get the house, get married, have kids,
Yep.
and then work your 9 to 5 the rest of your life.
Yep.
And
That's pretty accurate,
yeah,
especially
and-
around here.
And so I was like, I just don't know if I can risk getting married, getting to the age of 30, having a couple kids, and then regretting how I spent my 20s, and then being divorced with 2 kids, trying to do what I
Gonna
could have
do
done at 24,
beforehand. Sure.
right? And so I kind of let that be my like guiding light, if you would. And I was like, I'm gonna leave. And it was really hard because, like I had previously said, he was, my stability really after kind of
He
everything.
helped you through a lot of
Yeah,
things.
he helped me through a lot of things, and I was just like, I'm giving this up. And the relationship was good. Like, there was genuinely nothing wrong with the relationship. He was great on paper. Like, he was financially sound, had a great family, great head on his shoulders, wasn't emotionally or physically abusive in any way. And I was leaving, and so it didn't make sense to a lot of people. I feel like still to this day it doesn't make sense, because what we had is something that people like look for, and they're like, oh, I wish I could have that.
Yeah, like a picture perfect relationship almost.
Truly. And I just couldn't risk getting to the age of 30 with 2 kids trying to like self-discover myself, because at that point you have 2 kids. That's going to be your focus, and that's going to be the focus of the rest of your life. I was like, that risk is too big. I have to take time for myself. And if it's meant to be, we'll reconnect, right? And we'll, come back together. And, over time, we did end up kind of outgrowing each other. And looking back on it now, I'm so happy I left. It was one of the best decisions, but one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my entire life.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have led me to everything that I have now and the people that I have now and experiences and opportunities. So it's definitely, it was definitely worth it. So when they say like the hardest decision is probably the best decision, it is real.
Sure.
Wow.
So,
Sure. I'm sure that was pretty difficult. If you could explain maybe how he was feeling, because he had the ring.
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like,
I definitely broke his heart.
Sure.
Because he was 9 years older than me. So he was at a point in his life where he was very ready to settle down. He kind of went through the phase of being single. He had his time. And so he was very ready to settle down. And when we were kind of like at the height of our relationship, that's also what I wanted. But then I was kind of like, wait, kind of took a step back. And so it did crush him a lot. And I feel like what people don't talk about enough is the guilt that comes with breaking somebody's heart. It's very hard to like live with that guilt sometimes, because you're like, I did mentally and emotionally kind of destroy somebody, not out of ill will,
Yeah.
I was being selfish in that way. But I also didn't want to risk, it being worse later down the road,
Right.
And so it's, looking back, it was the best for both of us, but he did go through a lot, and I did put him through a lot, not intentionally, but it was very hard for him, and it broke his heart.
I think that comes with a lot of relationships, though. Like, unless something, nasty happens at the end that causes the breakup or something, it's usually one person, gets hurt really bad. So,
and I think that's what made it even harder was because there was no cheating, there was no toxicity, there was nothing. And so it was more of like, why is this happening? And there was like no like reason really for him, I felt like. And so it just made it harder.
I think the age gap too is a little tough just because he was past the point of being ready.
Like his age is what you're thinking you'd maybe be ready at.
Yep.
And then you weren't there yet.
Well, and now looking back on it, even like today, right? Like I'll be 28 in September, and like that would be if I were to start dating a 19-year-old
now.
And and I'm just like, for me, I could never, that would just never, I could never do that. And nor just the experience that I went through, I would never want someone that young, right? Because they have not experienced enough life to know, in my opinion, what they want.
So then what led to applying for The Bachelor? Was there another relationship in between?
No, there wasn't another relationship in between. Maybe some situationships, but horrible. Do not recommend. 0 out of 10. But so Madison Johnson, I used to work with her at a med spa in Fargo, and she was actually on The Bachelor. And so I saw
that was just like a few seasons ago, right?
Yeah. I think it was Zach's season.
Okay.
But yeah, so she was on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, Madison went on The Bachelor. Why couldn't I go on The Bachelor? And so when her episode was actually airing, that's when I applied. So I applied a year before I actually like started the casting process.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And so they had, I don't know. Do you want to get into it right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
What does that application? Yeah, go.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
We had the same question. You're good.
You say it.
Okay, what does that application process look like?
When I applied at the time, it was very easy. I didn't have to do like a casting video. It was basically like, what's your name? What's your social? Why do you want to be on the show? This, that, and the other thing. And I think maybe what caught their attention was I put in my description, I'm like, let me do Fargo a little bit better. Just because, I don't know, did you guys watch Madison's episode?
I couldn't recall right now.
Okay.
I probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of drama around her episode. And it, obviously I love her and support her, but the way that maybe things were edited painted her to be in more of a negative light.
Sure.
And I know she got a lot of backlash from it and stuff. But I was just like, let me see if I can kind of go represent Fargo in like a different way, right? Thinking literally nothing of it. I was like, why not? What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Nothing's probably ever going to come of it. And so I applied. Nothing came of it. I was nothing like shortly after. And then I get a random text like April of last year and was like, hey, this is so-and-so casting for The Bachelor, would love to consider you, whatever. And I'm like, this is a scam. Like,
right, you did.
I screenshotted the text and sent it to a couple of my friends. And I'm like, they're getting pretty crazy with these scams. And so I responded. I was like, is this a scam? And she's like, no, like, here's our website and here's like what we cast for. And I'm like, this website still kind of seems sketch, but she hasn't asked for any money yet, so I'll continue. And that was kind of like my mindset going into it. I was like, if they ask for any bank information or anything like that,
then you're out.
Then it's a scam.
Yeah.
But if not, what's the worst that's going to happen? So I went through it and turned out to be legit. I will say the casting process is so long.
Yeah.
So long. So as soon as they text you, you're kind of thinking about it every day. And how I feel like the Bachelor franchise kind of works is you're in until you're out. And so they're not going to directly say like you're in, but if you're continuing through the process, you're in. and you're in until you're out.
That's
And
kind of
so,
tough. Like you don't know where you're at in the process.
No, yeah. And so you go through interviews, multiple interviews, and so it was a lengthy process. And
what do those interviews look like? Like what kinds of questions? And we'll talk to them whether or not you can share. But yeah.
No, so they're basically like, who are you? Why do you want to be on the show? Are you really trying to find love on The Bachelor? And just kind of going into your story. And so a lot of them were repetitive, right? I was basically kind of saying the same thing. In not that like I had to kind of make a story and say it multiple times. It was just I was being interviewed by different people throughout the, show. And so yeah, it just got to be a lot, but it was fun. I had fun throughout the process. My casting producer was amazing. I love her. Shout out Sage. She was amazing. Very supportive. And then you kind of get to a point where they like pass you on to the show producers.
Okay.
And then they start doing their own interviews and stuff. And casting was long, lots of interviews. I didn't get the yes until like 4 weeks before I had to leave. And
Sure.
so
Wow.
it was like, I'm kind of a planner, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to like buy dresses, and
Right,
I need
and
to
you
do
need
all
to
this
know what you're gonna
stuff
do for the
and
next
all this stuff.
however many months.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the hard part. Was they were very like, well, we don't know yet, this, that, and the other, and then like 6 weeks before, I was like, well, can you give me an idea because I need to start letting my job know.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this isn't like you're in. It's not an official yes, but I would start having the conversation with your work.
Sure. So you
But
probably
can I-
felt pretty good off of
Yeah,
that.
I kind of did, but they were also very like, this doesn't mean you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so they're very like, you can start this conversation, but no, it's not an official yes yet. And so I started to have the conversation with my job, but I was like, can I tell my job? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay. Okay. So I like told my job, I was like, I told the CEO, and I told him that I was like, hey, I'm going to step away. I'm going to take a leave of absence because I'm filming for a show. That's all I said. And he's like, okay, cool. And I was like, I can't say anymore, so please don't ask questions. And then
what was his reaction? He was like, okay,
yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, he was like, go for it. He was so supportive. And
Amazing.
it was nice because I actually had just started that job. And so I was very nervous that I was like, am I going to have a job when I come back?
Yeah.
And they were so supportive, which I really appreciated. And then to the rest of the people and the rest of the company, I was like, I'm just taking a personal leave of absence. I'd prefer if you just didn't ask questions during this time, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so many people were like, oh my gosh, I hope everything is okay. I'm here if you
Sure.
need me. And like in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm just actually going on a reality television show.
I bet
So-
that makes you feel good though.
Yeah,
like, they're
yeah.
being nice about
So
everything.
you
Yeah,
didn't
they
tell
were-
your job, but did you tell some of your friends?
Oh, yes. Yep. So there was like a few of them that knew throughout the entire process. We were allowed to kind of like have a couple people that we told, but we couldn't like, tell a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So I was moving out of like the townhome I lived in. And then she was also one that knew from the beginning because she actually let me stay with her and live with her while filming was going on. Because when you're gone, you do not have your phone. You do not have
Yeah.
access to anything. And so it's like you have to set up, and they tell you to pack and plan for 2 months. And so you have to pack and plan your whole entire life for 2 months, right? You have to get all your bills on auto pay. You have to get everything set up so that you can step away and everything can be managed for 2
Wow.
months, right? Like other people have to manage it, your job, your bills, everything. All your
Right.
bills have to get paid. And so it was nice that she let me live with her because then I didn't have to pay rent. And so I just had all my other bills set up on auto pay.
When it comes to quality meats, trust the experts at All Sauger Meats. Family owned and operated with locations in Ottoman, Fargo, and now open in Breckenridge.
From hand-cut steaks to in-house made sausage, fresh seafood to smoked bacon, they have everything you need to elevate your meals.
They're open 7 days a week in Breckenridge, so stop in whenever you need. Plus, check out our meat bundle packages and our bulk beef orders for unbeaten value.
Visit allsaugermeats.com or stop into your local Allsauger store and experience the difference in every bite.
All Sauger Meats, your trusted source for quality and freshness. Thank you, All Sauger Meats.
Need a smarter way to manage your business IT?
Digital Guru's Desktop as a Service gives you a secure access to your desktop, files, and apps from anywhere.
No more expensive servers or security worries. Windows, Office 365, email, and more is stored safely in the cloud, keeping your data protected and your team connected on any device. Take control of your IT today.
Click the link in our description to visit digitalguru.com to get started now. Thank you so much, Digital Guru, for hooking it up with these microphones.
Enjoy our next ad.
Discover Woods and Irons in Wapaton, North Dakota, your ultimate golf destination. With a family-friendly environment 6 days a week, it's the perfect spot for golfers of all ages. Adults can kick back with a drink from the driftwood, and if you're hungry, pizza is just one order away. Hours may vary during the summertime, so to check for availability for our bay, go to our website.
Whether you're sharpening your skills or just having some fun with your friends, Woods and Irons is the place to be.
Book your bay today. Thank you, Woods and Irons.
And it was really nice, but just before, literally the night before, she's got 2 daughters, and we told them just before, and
That you were going to the
yeah,
Bachelor.
I was like, hey, so all those times I was trying on dresses, it wasn't for a work event. I'm actually gonna go be on
Oh
the
my
Bachelor,
gosh.
and they're like, no way. And it was funny because they were kind of watching the season. So me and Landa religiously watched Jen's season.
Yeah.
Because I was going through the casting as it was airing, and I'm like, one of these men are going to be who I'm going to find love with. And we were always kind of trying to get them to watch without telling them why. And we're like, we tried to get you guys to watch with us, but we told them, and they were like, oh my gosh. And they were like so stunned. And then Lauren, she was like, wait, you're actually going to be on this season of The Bachelor. And she like processed it. It was so fun, and it was just super exciting. But
So at the time that you were watching that season, honestly, did you hope that it was Grant, or what did that look like?
Yep. I was hoping it was going to be Grant or Dylan, just
Okay.
because I think, those were the 2 kind of taller men, right? So I was like, I don't want to go on the show and the guy be the same height as me, and I'm wearing heels and I'm taller than him.
Yeah, you guys will see from the picture that we took.
Yep. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hoping it's someone tall. But then
Right.
also Grant and Dylan were 2 people that I kind of gravitated towards throughout Jen's season, because they just, and Spencer, he seemed just fun and very like caring, down to earth. They were all athletic people, so I was like, I'm happy with kind of whoever. Just as long as they're not short. And like through the casting process, they do ask you if you kind of have any like deal breakers. Like, are you open to all ethnicities, all ages, and are you open to if they have kids? And I actually told them, if they have kids, that's a deal breaker for me. Just because, no hate to anybody that does have kids and goes into a relationship with someone else with kids. But I'm just someone that I come from such an unbalanced, untraditional background that like my family foundation that I create is so important, and I want it to be like truly mine.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I can't do that with someone else's.
And that's just a preference.
Yeah,
and that's
yep,
okay.
Yeah, that's totally okay. And that doesn't mean I don't support other people, like my best friend. And so it's just my preference. And so that was something that I told them was a deal breaker, but anything else was open. And so throughout the entire casting process, I did not know who it was going to be. And we kind of found out like as the season was basically ending, and that's kind of when I got the yes. And then they told us around the same time of who it was going to be. And I was actually super excited that it was Grant, because he just seemed like a great guy, and we had a lot of similarities going into it. One of the biggest things was his dad kind of dealt with like addiction, and my mom also, and kind of dad, but my mom mainly dealt with addiction and alcoholism. And so I was like really looking forward to going into that and just like learning from him, because he maintained a relationship with his dad and I didn't. And I was like, how do you do that? Right? Like, I just have so much trauma with it. How'd you kind of navigate it? And so there was just a lot. I kind of delusionally thought my way into, this was my husband. I was like, this is my husband. So it was so funny.
And during that season, like, I just noticed he always had the right thing to say,
Yeah,
like,
yep. He was good with his words.
He was really good with his words. Yeah. No, but so your reaction was you were just super excited.
Yep.
And then how long after the casting was it until you got flown out and you actually went to LA, I guess.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say it was 4 weeks. It was like a month. And
Okay.
so as soon as we got there, we don't actually go live in the mansion right away. We're in a hotel. And then, yeah, you kind of get into the midst of being in The Bachelor. I mean, they fly you out and then they pick you up from the airport. They bring you to your hotel. And as soon as you step out of the car, they're like, do you have anybody you want to call? Otherwise, we're going to take your phone. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I called everybody on my way to the hotel because they like told you beforehand, like, you're not going to have your phone.
Right.
And then, yeah. So I'll kind of back up a little bit.
Yeah,
about
yeah. Sorry, I
packing.
kind of jumped ahead there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, because I know that's like something that everybody always wants to know is like, how do you? So they basically just give you an outline of what to pack for, and you basically have to pack like 9 to 10 dresses, like, night one dresses, and then you can have like cocktail dresses.
Yeah.
And then all your makeup, all your hair stuff, everything like that. People always ask if they do your hair and makeup there. Nope. Everybody has to do their own hair and makeup. Everybody has to dress themselves. And
Do you only get a certain amount of like suitcases?
you get 2 suitcases.
Good question.
That's it?
Yeah, you have 2 suitcases, and they're like,
Wow.
you cannot go overweight, or you have to pay for that. And so it's like, obviously, women definitely go overweight.
I bet that was pretty hard for you.
Yeah, and it's like
For
you have
any woman, dude,
yeah,
that's a long time.
and you have to pack for pretty much like every season
Yeah.
of weather, right?
Oh,
so it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have to like have like a warm coat. You have to have like hiking boots, sandals, heels.
Oh yeah, because you're
You
going.
know?
There's like the what is that called? Like where they travel and go somewhere else for
Yeah.
a day date or a
Yep.
group date and all
Yep.
that stuff.
So I think
it's so interesting.
I honestly can't remember because obviously after my episode I paid attention, but like not too heavily, just because it is kind of a lot, like watching everything back and just kind of being immersed in it. But I know that they went to kind of more of like a rainier place. I think it was like Scotland or something like that. That's where they
That's
went. And so it
insane.
was like a little chilly. And so, yeah, you have to pack. They tell you to pack for 2 months, 2 suitcases. And yeah, that's pretty much it. They don't tell you where you're going. They don't tell you anything. And so you're just like, oh my, how the fuck do I pack for this? How the fuck do I pack for this? And how do I fit it in 2 suitcases without being overweight?
Yeah.
It was impossible.
So they flew you into LAX,
Yep.
and then like you said, they brought you to the hotel.
Yep.
And then how long are you there for until you go? Night one.
So we were there for a couple days just because that's when they do all of like the promo before the show. So like the promo before the season airs, that's when we kind of film all that stuff.
Sure.
So we do that. And then, yeah, it was only a few days and then we get ready for night one. And they emphasize so much that like you need to get a lot of sleep. And we're like, okay, like we know it's a long night, but
that was a question here coming
Yeah.
up. Yeah, keep going.
so,
Keep going.
yeah, they tell you to get a lot of sleep. And so like that day I like woke up at 8. I'm like, because when you're somewhere new, you like, it's harder to sleep in sometimes, especially when it's like not vacation. And so I woke up at 8 and I was like, you're in a hotel room, you don't have your phone, so you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs a little bit. And I took a nap at like 11:30 to like 1. And then I was like, okay, we have to be ready by, I think it was like 5 or 6. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting ready. And so I start getting ready, do my hair, do my makeup. I'm actually doing my makeup first and then I do my hair. And the triple barrel that I was using actually died when I was getting ready. And I'm like, I don't have another triple barrel and I don't have anything else that I can use to get this like look for my hair. And so I called them and I was like, hey, my triple barrel does not work. Does somebody else have one that I could borrow? And they're like, we don't, so we're going to go get you one. And I was like,
Nice.
okay. So I'm literally like sitting in my hotel room with half my hair done, just like, doo-doo, like the Jeopardy sound, waiting for them to go get me this triple barrel. And it took like an hour, right? Because if you think of just like running an errand in LA, you can't just like
Right.
casually go down the store and get it. And so it took like an hour and I was like stressed. I was like, oh my gosh,
I'm not gonna
night
have enough
one,
time.
I'm going to go with a totally different hairdo than I was planning and whatever. So, but it ended up working out. We get there. And then, yeah, when you So your limo comes to the hotel, and then you're in the limo with 5 other women. And like when you go down to get into the limo, that's the first time you're ever seeing any of the girls.
Okay.
So
Wow.
we're all in the same hotel, and you can kind of hear them, but you didn't get to meet them or anything. And so you walk down to the limo and you see them and you're like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, this is real life. And obviously all of the women are stunning. They're in like ball gowns, you know, like dressed up. And so it was a lot to take in at first. And you're like, wow, this is actually a bachelor limo. And so you get in and then you go to the mansion. It's kind of a little bit of a drive. Windows are completely tinted, so you can't see like where you're going.
Sure.
And so then
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is interesting.
and so you can't see, and then you pull up, and you can like if you put your like face up to the window, you could see that we're at the Bachelor Mansion, and it was so surreal pulling up to it because you're like, I have only seen this on a TV screen.
Right.
And then you could see the silhouette of Grant, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's actually him. This is real. This is actually happening. And so then each girl goes out and does her thing. And then I went out, and it was so nervous because they like walk you through how to, you know, kind of go about it, right? So you step out, you kind of have to wait a little bit, and then you walk up to him and talk, and then you're meeting him for the first time, and it's just, there's, you know, lights and cameras everywhere, and it's a lot. And then you're meeting Grant for the first time, and I mean, it was so nerve-wracking, so overwhelming, very exciting. And then you kind of have your little intro with him, and then you walk into the mansion. And so once I walked in, that's when I found out that like we were the last limo. And so when I walked in, all of the girls were sitting on the couch, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is wild. I'm so overwhelmed.
Were they all meeting each other and stuff,
They
or
were
was
all
it kind of
talking.
just silent?
No, they were kind of all talking, but it gets silent when a new girl is walking in.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, this
That's
is crazy.
got to be a lot of freaking
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
And it was just because they're all like dressed so beautifully, and they're all
Right.
like beautiful women. And so I walked in, and I literally sat on the couch and kind of like laughed awkwardly, and they were all like, hi, what's your name? You know, and I'm like, hi, I'm Christina.
So they
And
were
I
everyone was nice though.
Yeah,
and
yep. They
But
were
I'm sure it's so difficult to
Yeah.
like stay confident when you have all these.
Yeah, everybody's
people
dressed
that
to
are
the
very
nines.
good-looking
I mean,
and all
you
that,
know,
yeah.
wearing these like, you know, Miss America type dresses and stuff. And so yeah, I sat down on the couch and introduced myself, and I was literally like, where can I get a drink? That was my first response, because I was like, oh my gosh, I need to just like take the edge off for a second,
Yeah.
because it's so overwhelming. And then you're also seeing the Bachelor Mansion for the first time ever.
Right.
And, you know, in the show, they never like show like a pan of the room, right?
Of course.
Right? Why would they? So it's like you see everything like connected, and you're like, oh my God, this is like real. And so it was just so crazy to see all of that in person and just be like, this is actually real. This is happening.
And what was that first feeling when you stepped out of the limo and started walking up? Like, what did that
Grant.
feel like? Yeah.
Yeah. It was overwhelming, but I was like, wow, he is so handsome in person.
That's awesome.
And then
And he
how
was
did you feel
tall.
talking to him?
Yeah.
Like,
It
how
was-
did you feel you did?
I think I did good. Because they kind of ask like how you kind of want to do your entrance, and like my biggest thing was I wanted to mention my grandpa, just because one of the things that he always taught me was if you take care of things, they last. And so
I remember you saying that on the show. Yeah.
Yep. My dream and my want was I wanted to pull up in the vintage car.
Yeah.
And so and do that kind of to encompass that whole idea. But I don't know if it wasn't in the budget or what. I don't know. I didn't get it, but whatever. And so
Someone got a llama or whatever, but you couldn't get a car.
I know. Allie Joe showed up in a Jeep, but so yeah, it was overwhelming. It was exciting. I kind of blacked out, if I'm being honest,
Yeah,
just because
100%.
it was, I mean, nothing can prepare you for a moment like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And seeing him in person for the first
Yeah.
time, because you've
Yep.
seen him on the television.
Yep.
And then you realize it's like, that's a real person.
Yeah, that's a real person. That's not a character.
So when you're back in the room with all the other ladies,
Mm-hmm.
how long are you there for?
So we're there all night. So filming kind of starts, you know, we left, I don't know exactly what time we left the like hotel.
Hotel.
But it was the sun had set. I mean, it's night. So it's like we're filming all throughout the night and into the morning.
Wow.
And so it was a very long night. Like, they were not kidding when they said, like, it's going to be a long night. Because they always say it, but, I mean, you don't really, like, conceptualize it until you're experiencing it there at the house. And so it was a very, very, very long night.
And what did it look like? Like, you start off, everyone is kind of finishing, coming up into the room.
Yep. And then he comes in. He kind of did his whole speech and talked. And then that's when girls kind of started talking to him. And the only thing that I regret from the show is that I didn't steal him first. Yeah. There was, after he had his speech, there was kind of a moment of pause where, like, nobody initially, like, was jumping to go talk to him. And I was like, this is my moment. But I chickened out, and then Bailey ended up talking to him first. And so I would say that's my biggest regret. Just because in, like, the dating world, I am someone that will always shoot my shot. I have no problem shooting my shot. But, like, in that moment, I couldn't. And, like, that's the one thing that I would say I regret out of everything. But.
So people are stealing him and going and having conversations. Is that what happens basically the whole night then?
Yeah.
Until...
Wow.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, but that rose ceremony, that first one is that night, right?
Yes. Yep. Everything's the same night. And so it gets very long. And this season 2, they kind of had that little like spin or whatever where his sister showed up, right? And so I was on the couch talking to some of the girls, and she just walks in, and I was like, who is this? Because she walked in, like, with confidence, and she's like, I'm going to talk to Grant. And he was talking to somebody, and then it's funny because how the Bachelor Mansion is all the little spots where people talk, you can kind of see them all from, like, one spot in the house pretty much.
Sure.
And so they were talking at this kind of, like, little balcony, and she walks in and steals him, and then they're talking, and at first, for me, it kind of looked flirty, and I was like, oh, my God, that's his ex-girlfriend. That is his ex-girlfriend. And some of the girls were like, no, it's his sister. They look alike.
Okay.
And I'm like...
They do look alike.
Yeah. And so... But have you ever heard the theory of, like, your soulmate kind of looks like you?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And so I believed in that, so I was like, I didn't even, like, notice it, but I was like, that's his ex-girlfriend. And I, like, was riding on that. I was like, that's his ex-girlfriend.
It's gotta be.
And so then they came up, and Grant was kind of like, obviously you girls saw who walked in. This is my sister. And we're like, oh.
Thank God.
Phew, phew. And not another girl added to the house. But so it was good. And then they kind of did their whole scene where she kind of, like, walked through, Grant, growing up with Grant, things like that. And that's where I was, like, sitting right next to Grant. And so it was kind of nerve-wracking because I was like, oh my gosh, my thigh is sitting right next to Grant's thigh, and I was like, oh my God, this is so real.
Yeah.
And so it was fun, but kind of throughout that whole night, it's just the girls getting to know each other, and then also just kind of talking about the experience, what they're hoping with Grant, talking about their conversations with Grant. And when you watch the show, you see all the conversations, but when you're, like, filming for the show, you don't know what is happening.
Sure,
yeah.
right.
And it's like you'll see someone and then you'll be like, oh my God, they're kissing. And we're just like, and it's like then you think about, like, okay, who else has he kissed? Because not all the girls, I don't think, initially said that they kissed. Not that they had to, right?
Right.
But it's just interesting because you just didn't know who they kissed, and we did not kiss. I'm kind of glad we didn't kiss. But yeah, it's just basically
I'm sure there was
hours and hours of, waiting for your turn to talk to him, and then
I'm sure no, you're good. I'm sure there was a lot of, like, drama in that first night, drama and gossip between the girls and, like, who goes and gets him next type of a thing.
Surprisingly, there wasn't. So we were all it was very much like a girl's girl type of energy. Yeah. And so some of the things we couldn't really interrupt because they were doing things. So I know, like, Parisa had, like, an AI presentation, and, like, some people were doing, like, things with clay and painting, and so it was hard to, like, navigate some of those things and, like, interrupting. But we did interrupt and kind of go about the typical, like, hey, can I steal him? So,
Every time.
Yep.
Brushmark Signs is a family-owned and operated business out of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
They are a one-stop shop for visual marketing.
Their designers can create logos, banners, indoor and outdoor signs,
Digital message boards, decals, and apparel.
as well as promotional items, window tinting, and more, and they ship nationwide.
They are a full-service sign company from start to finish.
Their install team is experienced, knowledgeable, and dependable, so if you're interested,
Give them a call at
218-847-3599.
or visit brushmarksigns.com.
Thank you guys for sponsoring this podcast.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
Huge thank you to today's sponsor, Giant Snacks. Giants is a small family-owned business that specializes in premium flavor and giant snack sizes.
From sunflower seeds and pistachios, pumpkin seeds and cashews, Giants has all the great snacks you need.
Don't forget some of the great flavors that they offer, from dill pickle to sweet Thai chili.
Or whatever flavor you're craving.
Check out the newest flavor that just arrived in stores.
Big Easy cashews and Big Easy sunflower seeds.
Available now online or in a store near you. Huge thank you to Giant Snacks for sponsoring this podcast.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
But it was long because every girl did get to talk to him that night.
Okay, that's what I was going to
Yep.
ask. So everyone at
Yeah.
least got to have a moment. How long did you get to have your one-on-one time with them?
I would say mine was only like 4 to 5 minutes. I mean, it was
Sure.
very brief. He was very like comforting because I was so nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I actually had my conversation way later in the night. So I was actually one of the last girls that ended up having a conversation. And so there was a lot kind of leading up to that because we went through that whole sister thing presentation, still hadn't talked to him. And then his sister ended up talking to some of the other women. And then Jesse comes in and then he drops the first impression rose. And then that's where he kind of dropped the bomb of this first impression rose is actually the first one-on-one date. And so I hadn't talked to him since
the
like I haven't talked to him
limo.
yet with that. Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more pressure now of this one-on-one conversation because this first impression rose, you get the first one-on-one date. And when Jesse walked in, that was also another surreal moment of like, I've only ever seen you on TV. Like, this is crazy. And so that was just like oh my gosh, I'm in front of like an actual, because I mean, when they do say, when you watch reality television show, like people on the TV kind of do seem like characters, right? Like,
for sure.
but they are real people. And it was just very surreal to see Jesse. But I mean, it was a lot. I really got in my head because I mean, it's hours of conversation, right? He has 25 women to talk to.
Right.
And then we had that, twist with his sister, and it was such a long night. And like at the end of it, I was just like, I just like overthought everything. And the conversation was good. He was very supportive. It was easy. We kind of talked about our past relationships just because he's someone that comes from a 7-year relationship.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was like, we can relate on that. And so, yeah, that was kind of, and then he has a Ferrari. So I kind of briefly mentioned cars, had to, but, but yeah, I mean, we had a good conversation. I left the conversation, not expecting to get sent home.
Yeah.
So if that gives you anything on how our conversation went, that's how I left the conversation.
And I'm sure he made you feel that way too. I'm sure he made every single girl feel that way up until the very last one.
Very last one. Yep. I would say that's how it goes. I mean, you kind of have to make them feel.
I mean, that's part of the
good.
show too.
Yeah.
You gotta let people go.
Especially
Yeah,
with
for
Grant.
sure.
I feel like he really made you feel like you were going to be there.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So-
it did. It did not feel like I was going home night one, so I was kind of shocked when I did. But a fun fact that I feel like most Bachelor people don't know is you have your infamous Bachelor picture of like Grant and then the cast like at the mansion. So that picture is actually taken after all the conversations have been had and just before the rose ceremony. So it's not
Sure.
something that like you start the night off with. It's like way later in the night, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because it's like, why don't you just get it out
Take it
of
right away.
right away when we're not all exhausted and we've been sitting with our makeup on for 12 hours and
Right.
it was cold too. So like all the doors and stuff are open in the mansion and it was like 50 degrees and we're like in like I was in like a thin strap dress and I was freezing. So if you see if you saw blankets in night one, it was because it was freezing.
See, that's the stuff that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Like when you're actually there, you're experiencing everything, and you get to see the whole mansion and deal with the temperature and all that, all the kind of stuff that people don't think about. But was there anything else that like Bachelor fans might not expect or might not know about night one?
Not anything that I haven't mentioned. It's just a lot of, kind of sitting around talking about your experience, what you want to talk about with Grant, conversations you've had, and then just waiting your turn kind of thing, and going and stealing, having a couple of drinks. And yeah, it's just pretty much what you see is what you get, other than it's a very long night.
Yeah.
How long is actually like the night, like time wise? Do you think
I would say that was, I don't know, because when I got eliminated, you get immediately sent home.
Oh.
Like, you literally go to a hotel in your night one dress, and then you kind of wait for your luggage, and then you go home that night. So it's like that day, I think, was like 36 hours for me.
Wow.
That I was awake. It was one of
That's horrible.
the worst days ever, just like mentally and emotionally, because you wake up, you kind of get ready, you kind of go through that whole thing, and then you go through all of that. And I would say one of the questions I get a lot now is like, did you cry because you were sad he sent you home? And I'm like, not really, because we did just kind of have like 7 minutes of conversation. Like, it wasn't that much, and it was very surface level. But I was kind of crying because I was like, I did so much to prepare for this.
Right.
And then I'm going home.
Yeah,
Like,
all that packing.
all of that, all of the interviews, all of literally 6 months of casting for now I'm going home.
And
Like,
you built up all of that time
Yeah.
of thinking, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? Then it finally happened, and then you get sent home.
Because I was literally manifesting. I'm like, this is actually my husband. Like, he could truly be my husband. And so I was just getting in the mindset of that and being very delusional. And then when it comes kind of like all crashing down, you're like, holy shit. Like, this just happened. I'm going home. This is crazy. And then...
Do you think all the girls have that same mindset too, going into it?
I don't know. I know obviously all of them are like, oh, this could potentially be my husband. I know that's kind of like the mindset going into it. But as far as like setting expectations, I feel like that's maybe where I kind of went wrong a little bit, is that I was like, I kind of assumed I was going to go further than I actually did. And then also I did have kind of like a lot of pressure from like when Madison was on. I was like, I don't want to go home night one because she went home night one too.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to let Fargo down. And so I was nervous about that too. But I mean, it is what it is. What happens happens. And but no, as soon as I got eliminated, you kind of go back, you get on a plane, and then you travel all day going back home. And that was
And you got
rough.
your phone back, and
yeah. And when I got my phone back, I would say that was probably after kind of getting eliminated in that, or initially seeing Grant, that being very overwhelming. But then when I got my phone back, I would say that was also very overwhelming, because they're like, we're not going to give you your phone back until you're basically like in the Uber on your way home, or on your way to the airport. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like in the elevator and I get my phone, and then I look at it, and I just immediately start crying because I saw that the Bachelor page had posted like a preview of the cast, like a potential cast. And I was in there, and so many people had texted me, screenshotted it.
Sure.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for your journey. I can't believe you're going to be on The Bachelor, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm reading all of this as I'm going home.
Sure.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be so disappointed. Like, that was the initial thought that I had, that I was like, everybody's going to be so disappointed that I went home night one. And like, that's all I could focus on. And I just like started crying because of that. Because I was like, oh my gosh.
Just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
then as soon as I kind of went through TSA, went to the airport, I called my best friend, FaceTimed Lisa, bawled my eyeballs out. I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, I didn't want to pick up the phone, because obviously she knew what had happened. And I was like, I'm going home. I'll see you soon. And I called Landa, the one I was living with, and she said the same thing. She's like, I almost didn't pick up because I didn't want to. And I was just
tough.
like, oh my gosh. And so it was very, very emotional. And it's also like one of those things too where, you know, I'm like crying in the airport and nobody knows, right? Like nobody knows what just happened. Nobody's going to know for a few months. And so it's just a very overwhelming, not sure how to process this kind of process. So,
Wow.
yeah.
No, that was good. You did
Yeah.
It is a lot
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
I want to ask one more thing about night one.
Yeah.
The actual rose ceremony itself. What was that? How did it feel for you?
So night one is kind of longer, or the rose ceremony is kind of longer, just because I mean he doesn't know everybody's name. There's
Yeah.
no way that a person could know.
Right.
So there is kind of a process they go about of like handing out the roses, but it was a lot because I was standing there like waiting for my name to be called, and I just kept seeing the girls go up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope it is. Like, please call my name. Like, I made eye contact with him a couple times during the rose ceremony. And so I'm like, please just say my name. And then when he didn't, it was funny because they did capture my like reaction. I kind of was like, oh my gosh, he didn't call my name. I'm going home. It was very bittersweet for sure because it's not what I was expecting. So.
Did you get to talk to the other girls that were leaving too?
I didn't actually. We were all on the same like bus going home, so there was actually 7 of us that got sent home night one.
That's a lot to
Yeah.
send home on night
Yep.
one.
And so it was a lot, but when I got on the bus, I was just like emotionally drained. I was sad. I was just like, it was like one of those like memes that you see where you're like looking out the window of something just like sad and like kind of crying. And I didn't really talk to anybody. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I've been up for at that point, I mean, it was like the sun had risen when I was on the bus.
Sure.
And so it had been like 24 hours since I had like gotten some sleep. And it was just a lot. It was overwhelming for sure.
And that feeling of like not getting a chance. Like this is the
Yes.
most surface level
Yep.
meeting. It's almost like looking at someone on Instagram
Yeah.
and then you get all these choices and you have to pick
Yep.
without actually knowing their personality
Right.
yet. And I feel like that would be so difficult because if you were to make it further and it just didn't work out, it didn't work out. But at least you were to prove your personality. But this
Yeah.
is just so surface level.
Very. And no, you're totally right in that sense too, because it's like I didn't get to live in the mansion. So I didn't get to move in the mansion. I didn't get to live with the girls. I didn't really get to experience all that comes with, you know, being a part of the Bachelor show. And so I was also bummed about that because I was just like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to live in the
100%.
mansion. I wanted to, you know, make breakfast with the girls and, you know, kind of experience something of the Bachelor. So
Obviously they continue filming for however long the season takes. First of all, do you even want to watch it? Do you watch it back? And then if you do you get an early sneak peek at it or do you watch it as it comes on TV?
Nope. So when filming's happening, after I got eliminated, obviously filming still stayed happening. I didn't get any sort of like know of what's happening.
Sure.
And when I tell you that like the Bachelor fans and the people that watch the show are crazy, they are crazy. So people knew when filming was happening, and the producers and stuff told us not to like read Reddit or whatever, but I mean we still did. People knew we got eliminated by our Pinterest activity.
Oh my
Really?
gosh.
That's how sleuthy they were in watching how
That much research on you guys?
Yes.
Because
Yep.
I'm sure you're told don't post anything.
Yeah, don't post anything. Your socials are on private. Don't be active, whatever. Yeah. People
Oh my gosh.
were finding out that we were getting eliminated and like what order we were getting eliminated by our activity on Pinterest.
Wow.
People investigate that
Yes.
much?
And then they go
Why can't
post it
you
on
just-
Reddit.
I feel like my girlfriend and her friends too, like they were excuse me, investigating it, like not like that, but they were seeing what the other people were posting.
Yeah.
So and they're like, don't spoil it for me, don't spoil it
Yeah.
for me, all that
Yep.
Oh my
stuff. So
gosh.
that is interesting that they already found that out.
There are some diehard
Yeah.
fans out there.
Yeah,
man.
when it was filming. So it's like nobody even knew, you know, where we were or anything. Like this
Sure.
was just early stages, and they were, I mean, people are just committed to.
Did you
This.
actually care? Were you kind of over it?
I was kind of over it for a little bit just because I wouldn't say like heartbroken. That's not the
You're
right
just
word.
bummed.
Yeah, I was just bummed that I was like, damn, like this didn't happen for me, kind of thing. And one of the feelings that I kind of got going back home was, did I just waste my big opportunity, right? Like my big shot at whatever, this could have been.
Yeah.
Did I waste it? And so that was just kind of a lot of emotions. And then it was kind of weird getting back in the rhythm of
Real life.
also because I told people that I'm like, I'm going to be gone for 2 months. And then I was like, oh, actually, psych, I'm back early. And so then they're like, oh, is everything okay? And then people started to ask questions and I couldn't say anything. I had to like be very secretive. And obviously we have confidentiality stuff that we can't talk about. But it was hard. I mean, it was hard to just pretend like none of it happened.
Right.
Because it was just an emotional whirlwind of things. And so it's like I had to go back to regular life. And
So does The Bachelor, obviously they cover all of your expenses, your travel expenses and all of that, but do they ever pay on top of that, or
No.
is it's just completely
no, yep.
okay.
We have to figure it out. That's something that early on in the casting, they're like, you do not get paid for this. So if you are gone for 2 months, you have to kind of have it figured out.
Yeah.
But unlike, I think, like Bachelor in Paradise shows like that, where it's kind of like a different setting where they're all in like a house kind of living together. I think in those situations they maybe get paid, but not for Bachelor or Bachelorette.
Interesting. So obviously you watched the whole season, I'm sure.
Yeah, yep.
So coming up to the end, were you team Latia or team Juliana?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like team anyone. Night one, I didn't have a conversation with either of them. And I kind of view things as like me and Juliana, I would consider Juliana a friend because we've had conversations. I've texted her, we've snapped. Latia, I've never had a conversation with her, so I kind of view it as like she's a castmate.
Yeah.
I don't obviously have ill will. I don't really care about the drama or anything like that, between them if there is any. But, both of their...
If you had to pick.
If I had to
Lean
pick,
more towards.
I lean more towards... I can't lean towards anyone. I'm very... I don't know. I'm just...
No,
very
that's-
supportive of Juliana, and like this is her love story and this is her journey, and she is a good person and she's going to embrace this fully. And Latia is now on her own journey and I fully support both of those journeys, right? I'll definitely be rooting for both of them. So I don't think that there's like I can't pick one, they're two different people and two different stories. So
What was your reaction to that finale? Look, obviously Grant basically was telling each of them like, I'm gonna propose to you.
Yep. There's a lot of validity in what Latia said, just because there is so much that we don't see, right? So much gets cut and there's conversations that we just never hear, especially with fantasy suites, right? Like there's no cameras and you can have very serious conversations of like what this looks like. And I mean, the lead can in fantasy suites be like, I am picking you, so don't worry. And so it's like, if he says that, why would she worry? And then when she gets blindsided, of course she's going to be like, what just happened?
For sure.
And then question him and for sure, call him out. I mean,
she let him hear it too,
she
for
did,
sure. And
for
same
sure.
with, I was surprised The Bachelor actually put in the fact that they're like, you don't show everything. Like they don't show all the conversations. And so I was kind of surprised that they put that in.
I was honestly surprised too, just because it kind of, but
exposes the background of the show a little.
Sure.
But I mean, that's something obvious that everyone knows. They can't put everything. But anyways.
No, I would say it's definitely, she had a right to feel the way that she did.
Yeah.
Juliana obviously had the right to feel the way that she did too after everything. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, they're on their own journeys now, and I support, all the girls on the cast. I mean, I love all of them. They are truly amazing. And I feel like our cast kind of came out as like really, really good friends. Obviously maybe not the leads, but the final two women.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody's just very supportive of each other, and that's what I can appreciate. So
when the season finally ended and we got to the end of the finale, Obviously, that portion is live. What
Yep.
was your reaction to Latia kind of going after Grant a little bit there?
She lit him up.
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of rightfully so too. I mean, if he kind of came in hot and heavy like he did throughout the entire season, right? It wasn't just like a one moment type of thing that she had said. So if he's kind of coming into it like that, she can rightfully call him out. And I think Latia made the comment about something along the lines of like, I'm just thankful this isn't my love story, or
Yeah.
something along the lines. Don't quote me, but as someone else that is her love story, that's kind of hard. Like, I feel like that was maybe a little bit unfair to Juliana, but when you're in the heat of things and you're very emotional, and that's the first time Latia is seeing him
Right.
after seeing that, right? And like, we don't get previews, we see when America sees. And so like night one, I had no idea how I was going to be shown. And then throughout the season, you have no idea how you're going to be portrayed, and it can be very overwhelming and scary because again, you're watching with America.
Yeah,
And you
I
have no
suppose,
idea
yeah.
what they're going to show because they have thousands of hours of footage.
Right.
You've said a lot of stuff. What are they going to show? And so it can be very intimidating, and it's very emotional. I mean, rewatching that and having to like relive it as well, because we're also reliving it, right? Like this happened a few months ago in real
Right.
life. So it's like that process too is kind of weird too. And then also, like, as someone that went home night one, you see all of it, right? And it's very overwhelming. So it's like she was probably very emotional and like flooded with emotions. So I mean, I probably would have a very similar response too, because
Yeah. And that's a long time in between like when it happened versus when it's being shown.
Yep.
And so she probably like already kind of went through the
Yeah,
whole grieving
healing-
process and then
healing
just got
thing.
fired back up
Yeah,
when she saw
yeah.
the last episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
as anyone I feel like would,
Right.
just because that's also when, leading up to that moment, you only have to remember the conversations that you had, right? Like, you didn't see
Right.
anything else.
Right.
On the show. And so then also kind of remembering what he said, and then also just seeing how he acted with other women, you're just like, wait, I feel like it could make you question a lot, which then would fuel definitely her calling him out.
Yeah, but
Well, and I feel like in Juliana's spot, there would be a lot, right? Because when the season's airing, she's engaged, right?
Right.
So she's engaged to him,
Yeah.
and then she's watching everything back and watching how his connections with other women went, what he said, things like that. And so,
I didn't think of it like that.
yeah, yep. And so she's engaged when the whole show is going on. And so, for her, I feel like it's the most, right? Like
I would
that-
not want to watch that.
No.
Yeah. No.
Hell no.
And so I feel like that would be the hardest position to be in, just because, I mean, you're basically watching your fiance date
Yeah.
other women for 2.5 months
And kiss and-
and kind of do all that stuff.
Yep.
But, I think what's nice too throughout that process is that obviously they do get to talk, and so they can have conversations, around episodes that air, and then kind of talk through things and just like work together on it, like by themselves, because nobody knows that they're engaged, during filming. And so it's like they can kind of be secluded in that way. But I could definitely see, I mean, it would definitely raise trust issues with me, because I'm like, but wait,
Yeah.
you actually had that connection with her, and that's what you were telling her?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, but I definitely have so much love for both of them. I wish Grant and Juliana the best, and I wish Latia the best too. I know she's gonna definitely find her person, and so yeah, I just, there's nothing but love. There's nothing
sure.
but love for the whole cast. If I were to give any advice to anybody that like wants to apply for a reality television show, definitely go do it. Like, it doesn't hurt. Shoot your shot. Go for it. It was just a really good experience, and so yeah,
That's awesome.
Shoot your shot in
Yeah.
anything in life.
You gave us some advice on if you want to do reality TV show, but because of everything you've been through, I do want to
Yeah.
ask you just a piece of advice for maybe young women that are
Yeah.
going through things, or just to kind of
Yeah, I love that question. I would say take the time to just figure out who you are and truly build a support system. I don't know. There's kind of a lot going through my head right now. That's a good question, but I think it's just
one thing I've kind of picked up on. Maybe you can lead off of this too. Is like love yourself before you can love somebody else, or not necessarily love, but really understand who you are before you can go out and find somebody to secure that relationship. Or whatever.
I would definitely say that for sure. I'm very glad that, I kind of left my serious relationship and found that time to discover myself. And that's what I would recommend to anybody is take time for you, be single, experiment, and just try so many different things, because through that process, you're going to really discover who you are. And that's what's going to build confidence that will last, right? Like, you can go to the gym and work out for a year and look really fit, lose it in 4 months, and then lose all your confidence with it. But if you are confident with who you are as a person and your values, that's never going to waver. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we just want to thank you for coming on. This was awesome getting in touch with you and you coming to our shop. That was thanks. Obviously, it wasn't too far of a drive, but
it was good.
It was great. And we've learned a lot about you, but you've been through a lot, and it's awesome to see where you've come from that.
Yeah.
Because not everyone can have a past like you and become to where you are at now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So.
No, and thank you guys for giving me the space to kind of be myself and just have the conversation and allowing me to come up here. So
100%. Well, thank you guys for watching the Beyond the Spotlight podcast. We will see you guys next week on Monday at 6 p.m. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Yay!
Yeah.